Welcome to this explainer. Today we are totally dismantling that outdated, overly simplistic advice of just drink a glass of milk and you'll be fine. Instead, we're diving deep into the actual living biology of your skeletal system. Because here's the thing, ounce for ounce, human bone can bear as much weight as reinforced concrete. But unlike dead, static concrete, your skeleton is a highly dynamic, metabolic organ system. It's intimately connected to your hormones, your gut microbiome, and your overall trajectory of healthy aging. So today, we're going to uncover exactly how you can fortify it from the inside out.
Okay, let's dive into this with a question that might actually surprise you. If you think about your body as a highly calibrated structural bank account, at what exact age do you think this skeletal bank account is officially maxed out? Like, at what point do you possess the absolute highest bone density you will ever achieve in your entire lifetime? The answer is 30 years old. Yeah, 30. Roughly 50% of your peak bone mass is actively built during adolescence, and your body keeps making these small incremental deposits right up until you hit that 30-year mark. But after that point, your underlying biology fundamentally shifts. As part of the natural aging process, cellular senescence begins to subtly alter your metabolic rate. Your body actually starts breaking down slightly more bone than it builds, initiating this slow, natural decline. The whole game completely changes from active building to aggressive preservation.
And when we look at the timeline of our skeleton, it's incredibly revealing. You've got this active growth phase that peaks right at 30. But the most critical detail is what happens later in life. Women experience this dramatic, almost cliff-edge drop in bone density right around menopause. That is the exact moment when protective estrogen levels suddenly plummet. See, estrogen acts like this vital biological shield, keeping bone breakdown in check. So without it, the structural integrity of the skeleton is just left totally vulnerable to rapid decay.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the silent bone thief, the actual science of remodeling, the calcium paradox, some absolutely crucial synergistic vitamins, a really surprising whole food intervention, and finally, exactly how you can build lifelong skeletal armor.
All right, let's jump straight into part one, the silent bone thief. Osteoporosis is often called a silent epidemic for a pretty terrifying reason. You literally cannot feel your bones getting weaker. There's no pain, no warning signal, until a sudden, devastating fracture happens. And the most crucial point here is what researchers call the transmenopausal window. This is a specific, highly volatile 3-year period where severe estrogen depletion triggers a violent acceleration of bone loss. During just this tiny window of time, women can lose up to 7% of their total bone mass at critical structural junctions, like the hip and the spine. It essentially fast-tracks the aging process and severely threatens long-term mobility.
Which brings us to part two, the science of remodeling.
To actually protect our bones, we first have to understand them as dynamic living tissues. They aren't just static scaffolds holding you up. Your skeleton is quite literally a bustling microscopic construction site. Through a physiological process called remodeling, your body is continuously balancing demolition and reconstruction to maintain structural integrity. In fact, your entire human skeleton is completely broken down and replaced approximately every 7 to 10 years. You literally do not have the same bones today that you had a decade ago.
So inside you right now, there's this delicate cellular tug-of-war going on. On one side, you have osteoclasts. Think of them as the demolition crew responsible for breaking down old tissue. On the other side, you have osteoblasts, the builders, laying down fresh bone. But as we age, and particularly as those protective hormones like estrogen drop, the demolition crew becomes hyperactivated, and at the exact same time, the builders are suppressed. So the biological balance heavily skews toward rapid bone destruction.
And it gets even crazier when you look at the root cause of this imbalance. As we age, a really strange and damaging shift happens deep within our bone marrow. Stem cells, the ones that are supposed to become those bone-building osteoblasts, they actually mistakenly turn into fat cells instead. These fat cells just accumulate in the marrow and act as biological saboteurs. They literally secrete inflammatory cytokines and highly destructive enzymes, like one called legumain. This enzyme actively dissolves the fibronectin framework of your bones, accelerating senile osteoporosis from the inside out.
Okay, moving right along to part three, the calcium paradox. We really need to talk about the raw building blocks here, because simply grabbing any random calcium supplement off the grocery store shelf is a fundamentally flawed strategy. The chemical form of the calcium absolutely dictates its biological effectiveness. Calcium carbonate is cheap, meaning you take fewer pills, but it totally requires strong stomach acid to dissolve and absorb. You have to take it with a heavy meal. Calcium citrate, on the other hand, is highly soluble. It's absorbed up to 27% better, and it doesn't need stomach acid at all. So if you're an older adult or anyone taking acid reflux medication, calcium citrate is for sure the science-backed choice.
But despite these supplements being everywhere, the data reveals a massive, dangerous gap in our modern diet. The average adult consumes roughly 735 milligrams of calcium daily, but the physiological target to preserve bone over age 50, that's 1,200 milligrams. And because we're chronically shortchanging our skeleton, the body goes into pure survival mode. It actively begins stealing calcium directly from your bones just to keep your heart beating and your nervous system firing. Your skeleton literally sacrifices its own structure to keep your vital organs running.
Let's pivot to part 4, the synergists, vitamins D, K2, and magnesium.
See, the most critical oversight in bone health is that calcium is completely useless, and potentially even dangerous, without its specific biochemical managers. You can't just dump raw materials onto a construction site and expect a building to assemble itself, right? Vitamin D is the heavy lifter that actually pulls the calcium from your digestive tract into your bloodstream. Magnesium operates as the crucial foreman. It regulates the cellular building signals. And vitamin K2? K2 is the logistics manager that meticulously directs where that circulating calcium actually goes.
And honestly, the biological magic of K2 cannot be overstated. Without at least 32 micrograms of K2 a day, the calcium you ingest might never make it to your bones. Instead, this unguided, rogue calcium can dangerously accumulate and calcify your blood vessels and arteries, accelerating cardiovascular disease. K2 actively prevents this. It activates a protein called osteocalcin to firmly lock calcium into the skeletal matrix, while simultaneously activating MGP to sweep it completely out of your cardiovascular system. It's absolutely brilliant.
Now for part 5, surprising interventions. And we're talking about prunes.
I know, who would have thought, right? But beyond standard vitamins, emerging evidence points to the profound interconnectedness of our biological systems. Multiple rigorous clinical trials reveal that eating dried plums, prunes, actively reduces inflammatory bone resorption. But the mechanism is the truly fascinating part. The unique polyphenolic compounds in prunes act as a powerful prebiotic. They positively alter your gut microbiome, shifting your gut-brain communication to drastically reduce systemic inflammation across your entire body. So by healing the gut, you literally stop the inflammatory cascade that breaks down your skeletal mass.
Finally, part 6, building lifelong skeletal armor.
Let's synthesize all this incredible science into a highly practical defense strategy you can start using today. It's a rigorous 3-step daily routine. First, force your bones to adapt. Mechanical stress from heavy resistance training physically stimulates those bone-building osteoblasts into action. Second, lay an uncompromising dietary foundation, rich in complex calcium sources and those protective, microbiome-feeding prune polyphenols. And third, deploy targeted supplementation. Use calcium citrate paired strictly with its critical managers, vitamin D3, K2, and magnesium, to lock those minerals permanently into your skeleton.
To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this provocative thought. Your skeleton isn't just some static frame holding you up. It is a living, breathing account of your daily lifestyle choices. Knowing that bone loss accelerates silently and actively steals your structural integrity, are you making the necessary mechanical and nutritional deposits to ensure lifelong vitality? Think about it and start investing in your bones today.